get started on our topic. What we're covering today is supporting versus interfering. What I mean by supporting versus interfering, first of all, that's related to our relationships. And one of the reasons why I added this is because this is one of the things that came up in last week's group coaching. And I think it's important for us to understand, when is it that we're supporting the people around us? When is it that we're interfering with their path or we're holding them back? Even though it might seem like we're actually helping them, but how do we know that? How do we know that we're supporting them? And how do we know when we're interfering? And that's what I want to go into. And obviously, there's going to be a discussion. I don't know everything. I can only share my experience and my client's experience and what I've learned outside of that. And then we'll go into a discussion around this too. So I'll share this with a quick story. For me personally, most of my life, I've been around so many well-meaning people, from my parents to teachers to my community. They were all well-intentioned. Most of them were well-intentioned as far as I know, and they wanted to help me. They wanted to support me. The challenge was that what they wanted and what they expressed and what I received was two different things. Even though they wanted to help me get better in school or be better at connecting with other people, they wanted to help me and be more confident and successful and all sorts of things. But the things that they did do didn't help me. In fact, it took me the wrong direction. And I've thought about this often. Is like, well, how could it be that we could have a positive intention, but the effect is negative? And for a long time, I thought that it was just me. But then I started talking to people, and at this point, I've at least a couple of thousand people that I've talked to on one-on-one and group settings at a deeper level, and I found out more and more that that's a pattern. It wasn't just me. A lot of people feel like they're not getting the support that they need, and they don't know how to ask for the support that they need. Just like me, I didn't know how to ask the support that I needed. And the people who were trying their best, they didn't know how to give it. So then how do we bridge the gap here? And I wanted to go through a couple of ideas or perspectives for you guys to think through this. And so we can open this up to conversation and to help us move forward in our life, to be there for those we love, whether they're our kids, they're our family and friends, they're our team, whoever it is that we're dealing with. So we're there for them. And we're sharing not only love, but we're helping them move forward in their life when they need it. So I want to talk about a couple of things. First one is attachment versus love. So a lot of times attachment is seen in the positive context, and to a certain degree it is. Attachment is a part of human relationships. In fact, attachment in early childhood is really important for a child to understand that I'm depending on this on these caregivers, and that child is really attached to the parents, and they really need to know that these parents or these caregivers are taking care of them, and in fact their survival depends on them. But here's the interesting path for human beings. As human beings grow up, we naturally need to develop the ability to become a little bit self-reliant. That doesn't mean that we don't get support from others, but our ability to make decisions, our ability to be confident in ourselves, to figure things out, our ability to take action despite the fact that we're going to make mistakes, all sorts of things that we need to become confident in, comes from this security that we need to develop in our life. And the security comes from knowing that, oh, I have people that are supporting me, but I believe in myself to do this too. And none of this is like a conscious thought. It naturally develops. So for example, for a human being, the child, and we're learning more and more through studies nowadays, is that if a child feels secure enough in those first few years of their life, specifically the first 2 to 3 years, and then for 6, 7, 8 years, then they're more likely to be more secure and confident in themselves. If a child didn't feel like they were loved and supported in those first few years, they will be more self-conscious. They will hold themselves back from all sorts of things. They will be much less connected to people. They will have a sort of a fear of not being supported in a sense. So we just need to be aware of that. So now what does that mean as we get, older? So as we get older, whether, now let's take a parent and child relationship. So if we've done our job of, or if we've done our best, and by the way, none of this means that you need to be perfect in this area. I'm not even close to perfect, or not even close to great, because I have a lot of challenges when it comes to my children or with any other people. In fact, I got into an argument this Sunday with my wife about not and that was hard, because then I figured out afterwards, holy shoot, this is what I did. I didn't even realize it in that moment. But the point that I'm trying to convey here is that, let's say it's a parent and child relationship. A parent wants to be there for the child, but the tendency might be that, let me give advice here. Let me teach this child based on my experience what would help this child. Now that can be helpful, but there's a condition there. Especially if the child is in an age where they can communicate and they can talk to you and they can relay information. The parent's job, first of all, naturally becomes to understand the child. And that part is very hard for us, not because it's hard for us as human beings, but because it might not be modeled for us. Acceptance and understanding, those are needs. Those are human needs. To accept us, acknowledge us where we are, and then understand where we are, and based on that, help us think through it. And even helping us thinking through it doesn't mean, let me give you my advice. It could mean, let me ask you some questions. Or it could mean giving you some perspective, like I am doing it, but I'm not telling you what to do here. I'm helping you think through, use your own mind to come up with solutions for your own life. Now, that same dynamic could show up in all sorts of relationships. It doesn't have to be parent-child. It could be between spouse. It could be between team members, where a team member is like, well, I know what to do here, you should do this, versus let's think through this together. So then going back to attachment versus love, and one of the best ways that I've seen this, one of the best places or best quotes, I think it was from Rumi, or maybe Buddha, one of those guys, they think alike. But the example was that if you see a flower, attachment might be you pluck it and take it. Love might be you water it and let it be. And the big difference there is that attachment goes towards, it brings our needs into the picture too. Oh, I need for this child to listen to me. I need for this team member to acknowledge me. I need for these people to acknowledge me. It always goes back to us. Versus love, and by the way, service is the same thing. The focus is the other side. How can I support this person? There's another way that we can look at this. This is a distinction. I've shared this before, but this is a distinction that Brennan Burchard in his book, The Chart, shares. It's being caretaker versus caregiver. So a caretaker is somebody who constantly is doing things for other people. Now, I'll give you an example from my life. Most of my childhood, my mom, she's amazing. She loves us. Growing up, all I remember is her cooking constantly, even working outside, coming home, cooking, doing our laundry, doing all sorts of stuff. And she would get frustrated and miserable about, well, we're not doing anything, but she would constantly do everything. She would lecture us, but she would still do it. Now, I realized that much later on when I moved out, I realized how useless I was, that I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do my laundry. I couldn't cook properly. I couldn't organize my stuff. I didn't know how to do anything. And most of that went back to, and then when I started sharing, my mom was like, well, I told you to start to do those things. But I'm like, Mom, you didn't let us. You would tell us and you would still do it. You are our caretakers. Now, a caregiver might be a very different dynamic. It could be, hey, I'm noticing that in my context, your stuff is all over the place. How can we take care of this? What's the solution we come up with? Or can you take care of your stuff? Challenging somebody to take care of their own stuff. Maybe help them with the thinking process, maybe help them with what they need, but letting them come up with a solution and challenging them to take care of it. Develop the skill sets. Another way of putting that is, there's a phrase that we have all heard probably: give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. If we're a caretaker, we're constantly trying to fix something in people's lives. But if we're a caregiver, we're giving them perspective, we're helping them think through things, we're challenging them to take action, we're supporting them, being for them, but not necessarily doing everything for them, or worrying and thinking about, oh, well, did they do this? Did they not do that? And this is where it comes down to when I'm talking about interfering with their path versus supporting them. Now, I want to take this in a bigger context. So there's a deeper belief that comes into all this. So think about this from a child and parent's perspective. Now, whether you're a parent or not, but it doesn't actually matter. I'm giving that reference from a human family perspective. Think about this. We come into this world, we're born, we learn some things from our caregivers, and then we go off and try to figure out our path. Now, we could do that within a community, or we could do that on our own. There are different dynamics that are happening. Now, there's a strong subconscious belief that a lot of parents, and then that goes towards leaders, then that goes towards anybody who's in a position of power or authority, will think that, oh, this is my child, this is my team member, this is my wife, this is my community. And the key here is that my piece. There's a possession piece that comes into this that might be a little bit dangerous. So is it really our child? Is it really our community, in the sense that, oh, I need to control everything here, I need to dictate the direction here? Or is it something that's a common relationship? It's something that we're working through together. And as I've thought about this more and more, as you grow older and as you start to see things, as you start to see experiences and you look back on, and as I've heard so much, especially from people who are at the last stages of their life, when they look back, it's like, our parents might have started our guidance, but we needed to figure out our life. This company, might have given us a job, but we needed to develop the skill sets to move our life forward in here. I might have been in this relationship, and we worked together through a lot of things in this intimate relationship, but we needed to support each other to go towards a path that matters to us, to discover ourselves. So there's an interesting dynamic happens, is that no matter what environment we're in, at the end of the day, looking at ourselves, we have to figure out what is purposeful to us, what means to us, what doesn't. And what our life is might be very different for somebody else, even the people closest to us. And attaching ourselves to their path and saying that they have to take the same exact path as us might create more interference than support. And I get that that could be painful for us, and I've dealt with a fair share of that myself. But at the end of the day, I want you guys to think about it. Do we want a world? Do we want a family? Do we want a society where we're helping those around us discover their path, discover who they are in their core, what their purpose is? Or do we want a world where we dictate what people should do, what their purpose is, this is what they should be doing? And that's something for us to think through. For me, the conclusion I've come to is that we really need to be there to support people to figure out who they are at their core. And the reason that conclusion is, to this day, after over 15 years of thinking through this, I still don't know who I am at my core. I still don't know fully what my purpose is. I am in the discovery stage, and I have consciously, consistently worked through this. Now, think about most people on average. They haven't done that, and they're still going through that. And if they don't know what their path is, if we don't know what our path is, how can we be sure that what is right for them and what is not? None of this means we can't live together, we can't support each other, we can't have fun with each other, but it does mean, it does put in question, what is it that we're here to do? And what is that child's role? What is that team member's role in this life? What is somebody else's role? And I know I'm putting it in a bigger context. So just to summarize, we need to question what is our role and what is other people's roles, and are we taking them away from their path, or are we helping them, support them to figure out their path, which means who they are at their core, what are they meant to do, and if that's even a reality for them. And understanding really, are we being caretakers or caregivers? Are we bringing ourselves into the picture and constantly making them self-dependent on us because maybe you have an unrealized insecurity, or are we helping them connect to their own potential? Are we watering the flower, or are we picking the flower?